So, welcome to Happy Naked, the podcast. This is your host, and I'm the founder of D Health and Fitness, creator of NakedFit online program, and author of Happy Naked, a straightforward 5 cents guide to loving the skin you're in and feeling that energy in every area of your life. I have helped hundreds of people in the last years through fitness, nutrition, daily habits, and healing. So please book your time with me and have a complimentary consultation. So check it out, www.nakedfitonline.com, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you to see how I can be of service. And follow me on Instagram as dmago_happy_naked and also on Facebook. And you can find the NakedFit page. It's called NakedFit 100% Health and Fitness on Facebook. So remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, where I have many interesting episodes. And also, if you find this interesting, please share. You know what? Let's share the goodness to everybody, because this is all about elevating the energy and everything in this planet for everybody, right? That's what it's all about. So I want to share with you something, right? Before I introduce you to my guest today. So I have been involved in the Tantra community for years. My experiences have been life-changing in many areas of life, especially learning communication skills, believe it or not. That was my biggest learning. And that's the biggest takeaway from Tantra. And it also allowed me to be open to explore areas of me that if it wasn't because of Tantra, I would never explore those areas. And I did it because participating in a very sacred, like a place where you can be and explore, it is magical. I'm telling you guys, it is perfect. So Tantra allow us to see people not only in the physical aspect. That's my experience, okay? See through them instead. It is incredible, all the experiences I had. And they're so awesome that it's really hard to explain in words. It is, in my opinion, it's more like an experimental than words cannot even explain what you go through. And on the other side, it comes to sexuality. And when it comes to sexuality, it really fascinates me to see all the experts in the area that I know that are in my circle. And it's because this is rising because it's the need to reconnect with our feminine energy. We have been living in a world that is completely masculine in many, many, many ways. And that actually reminds me of that interview that I had with a good friend of mine, Chris Kennedy, where he talks about the man-made women. So check the episode number 43, and then you will see, you will get the chance to also get a different perspective that we'll be talking about today. So here we are, and discover and many, many things that it's missing in our path of self-discovery through Tantra, sacred sexuality, and consciousness. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Okay? So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Allison Hong. It's a transformational catalyst that empowers people to reclaim the wisdom of their bodies and cultivate unshakable self-love. That's beautiful. Her passion is creating brave space for people to step in deeper layer of truth, love, and freedom. Oh my God, how much we need that these days. So she is a founder of UnTamed, Wild Women Sisterhood, and has led workshops for thousands of people around the world in the field of Tantra, sacred sexuality, conscious communication, and embodiment. And make sure that you stay tuned because we have a gift at the end of this interview. So welcome, Allison, and thank you so much for saying yes to this. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on here, Dee. Thank you for having me on. And just as a little note, if anybody's looking me up, it's just Alice, not Allison. So ALICE.
Alice, yeah, perfect. So, and this is awesome. So, tell us a little bit about the work that you do. It is fascinating to me. And so how, like, what are the things that you do with people?
Well, yeah, there's a wide breadth of what I love to share with people in the world, and a lot of it, like the bio that you just read out, is just that it's really supporting all people, but especially women, to connect with the innate wisdom that lies within our body, to learn what it means to really listen to the way that our body speaks, to be brave and courageous enough to follow what it is that our hearts, our bodies, our sex, our everything, dreams of, and what it means to really say yes to not just the easy things in life that are easy to say yes to, but the whole breadth of the human experience. So for me, that's really what Tantra is about, is really embracing life in its fullness and integrating all the different aspects of who we are.
Can you, in general, a lot of people see Tantra just as sex, right? It's linked to sex. And and honestly, that's how I started searching for it. And the beginning is because I wanted to know exactly what it was all about. And now I know better, and I know that that's not all. It is way, way deeper than that. So, can you give us an idea for people that are curious, to find out what Tantra it's all about? Because I think it's a misconception, right? That it's just Tantra is just all about sex. So give us an idea of how, like, what are the wonderful things that you can get by exploring Tantra?
Sure. Well, let's just start with the basics. So the word Tantra is made up of two words. And of course, as with many Sanskrit and ancient languages, there are many different ways to interpret it. And so I just offer one of the ways right now. So Tantra, Tan is to expand, and Tra is a technique. And so in the word itself, Tantra means to be able to expand our awareness. They are techniques of expanding our consciousness, to be able to embrace everything that is beyond perhaps what we can see and feel, but not excluding that. And so that's why when people associate sex with tantra, it's not completely incorrect, because we also embrace sexuality. We say yes, that is also a part of life, and actually a very powerful part of life. Our sexual energy is our life force energy, and many different traditions, yogic traditions, meditation, all of this stuff really focus on life force energy and reclaiming that. And in Tantra, we see sexual energy as part of our life force. In fact, every human being on this planet is here because of sexual energy on some level. And so you're absolutely right. It goes way beyond sexuality and also embraces it at the same time. But ultimately, at its heart, it's really about how do we expand our consciousness, our awareness, our hearts, to be able to embrace all that there is to life.
How do you start getting into this world and work?
Yeah. So for me, I've always had kind of two parts that felt very separate until I got involved with Tantra. So there's this part of me that has always been really deeply spiritual, let's call it. The part of me that has always longed to know, why am I here on this planet? Why are we all here on this planet? What is this about? Who am I? And then there's this other part of me that has been deeply embodied. Like, I love being in my body. I remember being in high school and I was really athletic. I was part of a lot of sports teams. Not that you would ever know it because I'm pretty small, but that was a big active part of my life. And um, and so Tantra really came into my life when it was a merging of those two things. It was a spiritual path that allowed me to inquire about these deeper questions about the divine and what that is and what that means and feels like to me in my life, and also embrace the being in the body. Um, I spent many, many years as a yoga teacher. I still teach yoga. I love it. And a part of why I love it is because it's very grounded in the present moment reality of the body. And I feel like that's really important to have, a practice, whatever that is for you, that keeps you in your body. And at the same time, it allowed me to open up to feeling and sensing and experiencing something uh, more than just the day to day getting up, going to work, doing the mundane things of life. So Tantra for me has been an intersection of my body and my spirit, my sexuality, my heart, my masculine, my feminine. It's really that place of deep integration.
Wow. So you were first a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then you start getting into this path.
Well,
Oh.
actually, I entered Tantra in a way that is much different than most people these days. I think a lot of people enter Tantra because they've heard of tantric sexuality, or they've heard of cuddle parties, or they've heard these different things, the eye gazing. But I actually entered into Tantra through the philosophy,
Mm.
because Tantra is a philosophy, so there can be many people who don't ever practice the sexual arts at all
Mm-hmm.
and are devoted tantrikas. Um, and so I actually entered through the realm of philosophy,
Wow.
of seeing it as a perspective on life. And then the what we call neo tantra, kind of these newer practices of tantra, and with a partner, came in later on in my life.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's very, very interesting. Yeah. So how like what are the things that you when that you do because for me I got introduced to this through the pujas, but I know the pujas are not everybody knows what it is, and then my understanding is that it's also it is a tradition from a long time, but just explain us a little bit of that because for me I see I got introduced to tantra through pujas, right? But I don't think they necessarily go hand in hand, correct?
Right. Yeah. So pujas are
Okay.
one aspect of tantra. So just for those of you who are listening or watching, puja is a really beautiful word. It comes from the Sanskrit language, which was the ancient language that was used on the subcontinent of India, where tantra emerged. And puja is a beautiful word, which is some combination of devotion or ritual, or being able to really deeply honor, to be able to honor the divine within each being, each, not even human beings, but just the elements of nature, even. And so it's a really, really beautiful word. And there's, as with many oral traditions, there's many stories as to where something starts. So again, I just offer one perspective, and it's a story that was shared with me that in villages in India where tantra was practiced, the whole community would come and gather, once a month or once a full moon, and everybody would come to a puja. It didn't matter if you were a little child that was 3 years old, or you were the grandmother of the tribe that was 93 years old, but everybody would come. And it didn't matter what your relationship was to any of these people. You would come together as a community to be able to explore these practices that connected you back to the essence of who we are.
Hmm.
And so,
Wow.
for example, in a puja, which some of you listening may or may not have experienced, some pujas are, you might get paired up with a partner. And then you might have an exercise where you eye gaze, which means that you just hold your gaze for a period of time, a few minutes. And the invitation is to really, drop the stories of who this person is to you, what they've done, what they haven't done, your projections, your fantasies on this person, all of these things, and to actually just let all of that drop so that you can come into the present moment with
Mm-hmm.
this person and feel them and feel the divinity that is within them. now, kind of an easy practice in a way to do with a stranger, perhaps that you've never met, that you have no stories about. But could you imagine coming together as a community every month, and perhaps that person that stands in front of you is somebody that just you had the biggest fight or argument with, or was the elder of the community that holds so much wisdom? Or maybe it's somebody that you're like, wow, I've had this love affair fantasy with. It doesn't matter. But actually, the intention was to come together so that we could see and recognize each other as the divine beings that we are.
Hmm.
So that was kind of one of the origins of puja.
Mm-hmm.
And now in the Tantra world, often pujas are the intention is just this, to bring community together so that we can meet each other beyond our stories, beyond our masks, and
Yeah.
feel the essence of what is really there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It is beautiful. I'm looking forward to be able to go back to pujas here in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something that you said that I really like when we talk about tantra, and it's it's about being yes or a no, and knowing that it has to be clear. In my experience, I always had my boundaries very very clear. Like I knew when it's a yes. I always knew when it was a no. I will not compromise my no's. Meaning, like if it's no, it's no, and if it hurts your feelings, well, you have to figure it out. But it's a no for me, right? Kind of idea. And I was raised that way. So when I came to when I started participating in the pujas, the one thing that caught my attention, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing as well, because I'm not from Canada, and it is that many people struggle with no's. They had a hard time saying no because it goes with boundaries, right? Like you when you're saying no, it's like you're not crossing this line, right? This is my space and you're not passing that. So and in my case, it is I was very clear with the no's, and sometimes it actually got to a point that it was even harder to say yes because I was like, I'm not sure if I should say yes to this, right? So it was the opposite, and but commonly what I found in general is that people have issues saying no, and I find that it's tantra helps with this in a very very beautiful way. So can you let's teach people how to say yes or no whenever they feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this up, Dee, because I was raised probably the opposite of you. So I am Chinese, Vietnamese, Canadian that also was a yoga teacher. So my partner and I always laugh about this because I got like all of the cultural conditioning around what it means to be nice and polite and not hurt anybody's feelings. So for
That's so fun.
me, that was a huge part of, what Tantra shares about is that, behind, and this is the part that really supported me and maybe will support others, is that, behind every yes is a no.
Mm-hmm.
And behind every no is a yes.
Hmm.
And that actually rarely are they ever one thing or another. So, for example, if I'm saying yes to having dinner with my friends on a night out, when actually I'm exhausted and would rather have a night home in my own bath, if I'm saying yes to my friends, I'm actually saying no to something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can go that way. Sometimes, as the example that you shared with me now, some people might be really firm in their no's. And so if you're saying no to something, also what are you saying yes to? Or whereas a no sometimes can be
Hmm.
actually a form of control, you could say, in a way of not actually opening up to the possibility and experiences that are here.
No.
And so, yeah, in Canada, we talk a lot about finding the no's, which is very important. But it's interesting because this year I moved to Switzerland, to Zurich, and I noticed that people are much more comfortable saying no
Mm-hmm.
in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually, what if I said yes in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I can change my mind at any time? And that was
Yes.
a very powerful, massive shift for me, because somewhere inside, and maybe some of you can relate, like I kind of felt like I remember going out on a date with a man and feeling like, okay, if I say yes to this kiss, that means that now I forever have to say yes to everything else that is coming, even though, of course, I know somewhere that that's not true. And yet there was the fear that if I said yes to this, that meant that I could no longer say no.
Yeah.
And it was so liberating for me when somebody told me the very simple thing of, Alice, you can change your mind at any time.
Yeah.
And how many cultural stories have we received, especially as
Yeah.
women, that, oh,
Yeah.
you had that drink with him, so that means that now you can't lead him on.
Yeah.
So really learning and understanding that, okay, I can tune into my body, my heart, my sex, my mind, everything, moment to moment,
Mm-hmm. It is.
and share from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is funny because the one thing I I kind of knew, but it came crystal clear, is I can change my mind. Right? It's like it's okay. I say yes, but I change my mind. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it is something that uh, I think it's something that I knew. Right? I can change, I change my mind. But here's another thing about changing your mind. And as women, we're always being judged for changing our minds, right?
Mm.
It's like, yeah, you never know with women. They always changing their mind. It makes, yeah, and this is our society in general, how we have been judging in some ways, right? That it's normal that we change our mind, but it's not about, and then I learned it's not about that we change our mind. It's, I can change my mind. You don't have to, I don't need anybody's permission, right?
Mm.
And it's kind of, it's just life changing. I tell that to my kids also, because it's not only for relationships. I said, I'm saying no right now, and if I change my mind, I will let you know. Like, right? So, or if I'm saying yes to something and then I feel like it's not gonna work, or something, it doesn't feel right, I'm like, I just changed my mind. And I let them know. I
Mm.
just changed my mind. I know I say this to you guys, but I'm just changing my mind because there's something that it doesn't feel right to me. So, no, this is not gonna happen now. Right? And it is, I think it's, for me, it was about communicating that with my voice, right? Instead
Mm.
of just thinking or having or knowing, right? Oh yeah, I can change my mind. So that was very, very a huge learning, and I hope people that are listening to us, uh, it take this away as well, because
Mm.
I think is, you can change your mind. You
Mm.
might want something right now, and then now you don't want it. Once
Yeah.
you have it in front of you, you're like, no, I don't want raspberries. I want strawberries now.
And what I really loved about, like, this one word that you kept coming back to when you were just sharing this, Dee, is, I can change my mind, but it's because of how I feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the pieces that, when we speak about boundaries, is that fine tuning of, okay, well, feeling is a moment to moment practice. So our minds can decide something ahead of time, whether we want to do it or not, we like it or we don't, or, whatever. And yet the reality is that our bodies are in the present moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how many, those moments where something catches you by surprise, or that person that perhaps you went on a date with for the first time, that you're like, wow, in my mind, that would have never worked. And yet my body, whoa, look at my body getting aroused, turned on in the presence of this person. And so, even though our minds can be very brilliant for many things, I think that's a part of cultivating more sensitivity, which is another thing that I love to share in Tantra is, how do we actually become more sensitive
Hmm.
and honest and open
Hmm.
to what is arising every moment? And that we can never really predict.
Yes.
And that's part of the magic, that unfolds
Yes.
when you don't know.
Yes. And and I think it's how everything start to unveil, right? Because I think it goes with the yes and the no, right? Just knowing that, allowing yourself that you can change your mind, being sensitive and honest, it is key, right? And I think not only being honest with somebody else, it's just about being honest with yourself, right? Like knowing and and sometimes I have the feeling that we always want to show that we got all our shit together, right?
Mm,
And that's why we like a lot of us in a certain moments we give a specific answer because we want to show that we have well put together, right? And but when when we tap into being honest, it's not only about being honest with the other person that we're having a conversation with or we're doing something with. It's also about being honest with yourself.
mm,
And I
mhm,
think in many cases that's the part that it's missing. It's not about only about the person that you have in front of you, right?
mm. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
those are key things that definitely another a big learning from Tantra. It was that, right? Even though that I was kind of you know I would say I say that I'm insensitive because I say what I have to say, and if you feel offended, that's your issue. You have to deal with that. I already spoke my truth, right? And but the one thing it really um, helped me, it was to be able to truly be honest
Mm,
and say, this is it. Those are my boundaries. And always say, and I might change my mind.
mm, mhm. Yeah.
I don't know, right? Because
Yeah.
it is, you don't really know things until you're actually in the moment, which is what you have been talking about, right? Being in your body, and it's the embodiment part that when I was introducing you, it's part of the teachings that you have, right?
Mm,
And how do you help people to be in their body?
mm.
I think it's a big deal these days.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of share on that last piece of what you just offered and kind of tie it into your current question, I think sometimes it can be very confusing to share what is our yes, our no, our truth in the moment, because there's also different aspects of us that are alive at every given moment. And so, for example, we have our sexual center. And so sometimes our sex is like, hell yeah, like I want everything about this, or sometimes it's like a fuck no. And sometimes it's somewhere in between. But our sex usually has some signal responsiveness, or sometimes it might be numb. It might be actually frozen and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not connect to that center, which is also possible. And then you have your gut or your womb, your sense of intuition, your feeling, your emotional center. And so your sex might be saying, go for it. And your emotions are like, oh, I don't know, I'm scared, or I don't know about this one, or, I'm a little bit afraid. And then there's the heart that also feels something. Maybe your heart feels super open to someone, or maybe it's closed, or maybe it feels protected or unsure. And then there's the mind that comes in and says, this is a good idea, this is not a good idea. And so, and then we have our spirit and our soul. And so we also have many layers, and sometimes these different aspects of us don't align on the same thing. And so I just want to offer a little tip, because you were asking this question about how do we get into our bodies. For me, it's really like the simplest practice, and you can even do this right now if you're listening or watching, is to just place your hands on a center of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like take your hands to
Yeah.
your heart and just
Yeah.
breathe into here for a moment and just feel, okay, right now I notice my heart is beating a little bit quicker, and or like take your hands to your sex organs and say, breathe into that. And what do I notice in this area of my body right now? And do it with your mind, so that just taking a breath and bringing awareness right to your body. And then, like you said earlier, being open and honest to seeing what is here. Um, and knowing that sometimes they're all going to be in alignment, and other times you're going to have a conversation or several conversations within yourself that you don't know. And in those moments where it's like not clear, my suggestion to people is always to share what is really happening for inside you, which is that I'm not clear. I actually don't know in this moment. I don't know if I want to go for a walk right now with you. And I notice inside that when you ask me, I'm a little bit hesitant, and so even just speaking what is actually happening in the moment can be very vulnerable and take some courage to do. And I assure you, I've done this so many times,
Mm.
and every single time that I speak truly what is happening inside my body at this moment, even if it's the most like, I am terrified right now to be in your presence, it always opens up space for connection. Always.
Yeah. No, and you know what? It's beautiful, and I love what you said about asking, connecting with each part of us, right? Our sex, our gut, our heart, our mind, spirit, and see where we are at, and 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 the fact that sometimes there is no alignment in that, right?
Mm.
And even when there is no alignment, it's about accepting that as well, right?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
there's always this expectation that everything needs to be in alignment, that that sexual desire plus your emotions and then your heart and your mind, it all have to be in the same place. And it's not always the case, right? And be okay with it, because it's about, that goes back to judging, how we judge ourselves, right? Expecting that we're supposed to be in a certain place or feel in a certain way, and sometimes that's not the case. And be okay with that. It is also kind of tough for a lot of us in different situations, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, the example that's coming up for me as you're speaking about this right now is for a job, for example, so in our livelihood, which also demands some of our life force or calls upon our life force to be there, be present for. I mean, maybe the job that you're doing right now is not the one that makes your heart go, ah, that is like your absolute, like, this is my fantasy of my service on this planet, and this is my mark and my impact. So maybe it's not that right now. However, perhaps it's serving the purpose of stability,
Yeah.
to be able to give yourself a knowing that, okay, I have stability in my life right now, and this is the center that it's serving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing as well. There's, like you said, nothing wrong with not all of your centers being in alignment. It's just when we are aware of what different aspects of us are saying, then there's a conversation that can be had, instead of one center overpowering the other or suppressing the other to say like, oh, but you shouldn't be doing this. We can actually bring and integrate all the aspects of our being together so that they are communicating and make a more conscious choice about whatever it is that we're, trying to choose in our life.
Yeah. So what will be the number one thing that you can tell people, like if any of the conversations that we had today on yes, no, tantra, sexuality, have this alignment, embodiment, when something like this just pops in their heads, like, oh my God, I need to work on this, what will be the top one thing that you will invite people to explore or do?
Good question. I got to take a few breaths with that one first. So, what comes to my mind, I mean, there's so many to choose from, of course. So what comes to me right now is the power of the word and. So many times when we are feeling different things in our life, in our hearts, when we're feeling somewhat conflicted, we use the word but. So I feel really grateful to be here, but I've got all of these other things that are heavy on my heart. I love my relationship with this man, but I find myself fantasizing about other people. And so the but, what happens there is there's a teacher of mine that says but is a block. So it creates a block or a wedge between the two things that you are saying, or you're feeling. The word and is more like a bridge. So and allows for both or all things to be true. And so one of the practices that I do is to try and eliminate as many of the buts out of my vocabulary. So to give you an example, like my grandmother was dear person in my life, closest, my love of my life. She passed away last year. It was very, very difficult for me in my grieving. And I just remember feeling so many things. I was so grateful for my connection with her, to be able to spend the last months of her life with her. So grateful. But when and when she died, I was devastated. Like, could not get myself out of bed for months. Didn't want to live anymore, truly. So I would get these people kind of coming to me, with the goodness of their heart, saying, oh, Alice, but you shouldn't be so sad. Grandma wouldn't want you to be so sad. Oh, you got to keep living your life. And, and on one way, I can understand that to be true. And that, of course, if I just stayed in that darkness all of the time, it would be just a difficult life for me. Yeah. And I was fucking devastated. I just lost my person. Of course, I'm going to be sad. So those are the places where the and is very powerful. I am so grateful for my connection with her. I am so glad that she is not suffering in her body anymore. And I am so happy, that I got to spend that time with her. And I am devastated. So all of those things can be true. So if I was to offer kind of one practice or nugget or gem, is really the power of the and. And, I see that in every way, like even in a yoga practice or a dance practice, you can be strong and soft. You can be empowered and vulnerable. You can be masculine and feminine. You can be sexy and serene. We are such complex, incredible beings that we are never just one thing.
Yes. And I like that. I like the fact that how you share that we're not one thing. And I think for a very long time we're trying to put ourselves in a box, right? And this is what I am. And even part of it, like, one thing that I kind of come to realize as you're sharing this is I I I have been the personal trainer, but I'm all these things as well, right? And that's why I'm doing this interviews with people like you, because that is also that part of me that like having these conversations. It's also me having this kind of conversations. It's not only those one part, right? And we have the tendency to put ourselves in one box, and part of my personal fight, it is that I'm not just that one thing. I'm all of this, right? And allow also people around me that they don't need to be this one thing. They can be all this stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the beautiful teaching that you do, and I love it. I love it because I think everybody need most or embrace this part of them, right? That
Mm.
it's just, you're not just one thing, you can be everything, or you can be one thing at that moment in time and then
Mm.
be another thing. It's like all these different hats that we wear. I'm a mom, right? I'm a partner, I'm a fitness trainer, but I'm this and I'm that, so right? So I'm all these things, and allow that to happen. So that is magical. Thank you for sharing that. It is beautiful. So you have a gift for the audience. Tell us about your gift, and I will share the link where people can access that gift from you. But tell us
Sure.
a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I've traveled all around the world and had such a blessing of really learning from so many amazing people and lineages, and sat with literally thousands of women around the world now in sacred circles, and tons of trainings. And I recorded a series of 5 video practices. They're short, potent. They're all under 10 minutes, and they're some of the most impactful practices that I've received in my journey, that have helped me on my path and are really applicable every single day. So, for example, if you are angry or frustrated and want to know how to move this life force that is your anger without suppressing it and making it smaller than it is, but also without lashing it out on somebody that doesn't deserve to be lashed out on, what do you do with this energy? So there is a video practice on that. There is a practice about the tantric heart, which is really about making kind of what we talked about today, making more space in your heart to embrace it all. There's a shaking meditation if you're feeling really nervous and just need to dust things off. So, anyways, those 5 recorded video practices are there for you.
Wow.
And yeah, they're in the link below. And then you'll also receive my newsletter, which has tons of goodies along the way as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. And I always love hearing from people who use them. So yeah, please send me a message as well and let me know.
Yeah. Well, feedback is key to know if we're doing the right things, right? For our people. That is key. So thank you very much for saying yes to this. I really, really appreciate. And I hope that all the information that you shared with us today is, it's going to change people's life. It is something minimum, but that's all sometimes what we need, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
have this kind of conversation that it opened the doors to something that you never thought about before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know you are an awesome coach, and I will invite everybody to to have that conversation with you, and of course share the feedback if they do when they do all these practices, right? And
Yeah,
of
thank
course
you.
the power of and.
Yes. There's also I just launched a really beautiful offering online called Wild Women Temple, which I'm super excited about. There's 130 women from around the globe who are in it right now that are really, keen to say a full yes to their lives. And I offer an embodiment practice and women's wisdom master classes and guest speakers and everything in there. So if you're a woman on this planet who just wants to find your soul tribe and soul family, we're out here with open arms.
Oh wow,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much
thank
for the
you.
work that you do, Dee. Thank you for this juicy and conversation. It's really lit me up, and I feel super energized. And
Yes, well, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate this, and sometimes I prefer to do this in person, but I'm so happy that you're on the other part of the world exploring some things wonderful. I'm sure, right? And um, and that's awesome. That is awesome, and maybe I can go and visit you one day.
please, there's a whole island and community here.
Totally, totally.
Love to have your
Well,
energy here.
well, thank you, and everybody, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, And please also follow Alice in all these different platforms as well. And I will be sharing also her link to the Facebook, her Facebook page, where you can contact her and all that, all these wonderful things. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you so much.